I'm going to start recording. Okay, so this is a tutorial on out of position 3-bet pots. We're looking at specifically small blind versus button and small blind versus low jack. So I guess I want to start by talking a little bit about 3-bet pots in general. So what makes 3-bet pots different than single raise pots? Just in general, anybody? Yeah, so um, lower SPR, tighter ranges for sure, um, and yeah, much tighter ranges. Yeah, and SPR is definitely a big thing. Um, so now, what would the main difference be between um, out of position as the out of position 3-better and the in position 3-better? Like what uh, should we be taking into account in those? Like what differences are there? Sure, sure. Um, yeah, we can talk about that a little bit. Wasn't gonna go quite that deep yet, but sure. So when we 3-bet out of position and the in position RFI calls, um, we have a couple strategic options on the flop. So uh, like if we're playing blind versus blind and we in a single raise pot and we raise the small blind, the main difference between being the PFR as the small blind as opposed to the button is that if we check, we can still face a bet. So um, one of a viable option as the out of position 3-better to get money in is checking to check raise, or check calling to get money in on a later street. So one thing is that the necessity for check raising on the flop goes down because um, like we can still jam river if turn goes check check. Also, uh, we're not going to face as many raises in position because again, lower SPR, and the in position player. So like as the in position player, if if so, let's say we call a 3-bet in position. Um, we can still check back the flop and raise the out of position turn bet to get money in. We don't have to bet the flop to get money in. So whereas that's not so much the case in a single raise pot. We can still raise the turn, but it would have to be massive, and then we'd have to make like a huge overbet on the river to get money in. That's not so much the case in 3-bet pots. We can like checking and checking back is a much more viable strategic option in 3-bet pots when SPR is lower. So on boards that are advantageous for one player, like they won't have as much incentive to bet as they would in single raise pots. Unless the advantage is like really damning and the other player just won't be able to defend nearly enough. So I guess we can sort of segue into the boards. So like as the out of position 3-better, what sorts of boards do we expect to be betting at the highest frequency? Well, before you answer that, let me pull up the ranges. So like, sure. So let's do so here's the button versus a small blind 3-bet. So given this, so like here's the small blind range, and then oh, here's the button response. So where do you think like the biggest asymmetry is going to be? Sure. Yeah. Also, two pair is going to make quite a bit of difference on double Broadway boards. So today we're just to be clear, we're just looking at double Broadway boards, um, because there's some nuance in splitting ranges and like doing away with certain sizes in some configurations and not others. So we're going to look specifically at that today. Um, so sort of like the small blind is going to be 3-betting um, like the wheel aces and then like the ace jack plus mostly. It's going to do a lot of flatting with like some of these middling ace x sort of hands. But notice uh, like well a bunch of the suited broadways and the offsuit broadways and middling to high pocket pairs, and then as we noticed, the button is going to be calling a bunch of suited aces. It'll be like 4-betting the ace 6 and ace 7 and the ace 3. So yeah, I mean, I would say um, probably the biggest asymmetry is in um, King X, especially when out of position is going to have like the nutted portion of that with kings and ace king, and then um, the button's going to be 4-betting jacks plus at a pure frequency, so like it's certainly going to have an advantage like at the top of the ranges in terms of sets. So we can kind of refer back to these, um, as we look through the sims. Full disclosure, I haven't looked at the sims at all, so we're kind of going to be learning as we go here. But let's see. Small blind versus button. So we'll look at ace queen 3. So this is small blind versus button. So on ace queen 3, remember like small blind versus button, there's not going to be like a huge advantage in ace x, right? But there is going to be like a pretty damning advantage in terms of sets, especially since the button isn't going to pure have threes. Also, like the button's going to have all of the ace queen. So, the advantage isn't as massive. So let's just, but main point being, the out of position player is going to have, the advantage at the very top with the queens, aces, and ace king, and well, let's see, ace 3. Okay, it doesn't. I thought small blind had ace 3. Maybe versus the, yeah, versus the min raise it has ace 3. Versus the 2.5 it doesn't. Okay. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Okay. So let's look at the browser. So okay. So this is a 10%, quarter, half, 3/4, Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me reshare. Okay, can you see this? Okay, so this is we have a check, 10%, quarter, half, 3/4 pot, and jam. So this is sort of what the strategy looks like. So, um, yeah, like when we have like a huge advantage in one pair hands, like middling sorts of hands, like we're going to be betting a bunch for the small size, right? Notice like we don't have a huge advantage in the ace-x, so that we're not going to be doing a bunch of like down betting. Whereas I suspect in the low jack versus small blind, we would probably have more of a small size. I'm not sure, but that's what I suspect. Um, yeah, so here at the top of the ranges, we have like the ace queen, ace king, where we're using the 3/4 size. Again, I think this is a spot a lot of people misplay. They just kind of like blindly range bet for like a third of the pot, or like do a bunch of quarter pot size betting. Um, but yeah, I think that's a mistake. Um, I'm doing a lot of half potting here. I don't have a small size in this configuration. I just half pot or check. So I guess I'll be implementing a 3/4 size here. I haven't run any 3-bet pot sims with a 3/4 size, so I guess that's the preferred size. Yeah, and this is the response. There's no raising again versus that size. You don't have any incentive to raise. You can just put the money in on the next street if he checks, or well, you can get the money in by the river regardless. Um, that's possible. That's possible. Yeah. There might be a little bit more favor to the small size on a rainbow board. That's definitely true. Um, yeah, and also Imposition is going to have like 5/4 for a gut shot. So yeah, I mean that's definitely true. I don't suspect it'd make a huge difference. I could be wrong there, but here we can take a look at the range explorer. So see, out of position is crushing most of the range. Um, yeah, but we kind of expect that. Small blind versus button, there's pretty huge asymmetry there. Okay, because on these double Broadway boards, like the out of position is gonna have um, like all the suited Broadways, whereas Imposition is gonna like 4-bet some and fold some, but mostly 4-bet if it doesn't have it at a 100% frequency. Okay. Yeah. And on an ace high board, like we don't have as much incentive to bet like the middling portion of our ace x or queen x, just because the board's a little more static, and we're not like so afraid of overcards. Whereas like on a queen high board, like we'd have more incentive to bet jack x, because an ace or a king would pretty much kill us. So yeah. So Imposition looks to be betting around half the time. Yep. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, that's pretty much the only size it would use here. The preferred size is 1/3 or less, pretty much. Because out of position is uncapped. Like you'll see this in pretty much every, like most all 3-bet pot scenarios where out of position checks, like the imposition player is going to be doing a ton of down betting or checking, just because it's at like a huge nut disadvantage. So yeah, I mean, and imposition again is going to be facing a lot of check raises. Apparently not here. What? It's not doing any check raising. That's sort of odd. It's a little suspicious. Well, that raise size is a little bit big, I guess. Doesn't really look like it wants to do much check raising though. But again, I mean, like SPR is lower. That it, sure. I mean, I'm not so sure. I agree with that assessment. So uh, I'm really not sure why. I mean, it's obviously a function of SPR. Like you would see a ton of check raising if this was like blind versus blind. But yeah, I mean, the SPR is so low. I mean, it's not too difficult to get money on later streets. Um, so okay, so let's talk about the next street. So like on the turn, um, let's say it goes check check, right? Because you should be doing a lot of checking on this board. Um, well, okay. One thing I do want to point out is the 50% rule. So when out of position checks, the position player is betting less than 50% of the time. Um, on the like on the flop, you'll see this most of the time adhered to in 3-bet pots. I don't think I've seen it get out of line there. Um, so yeah, so the betting range for imposition, um, it's like the stronger portion of ace X, and then yeah, like some queen X with a backdoor. Okay, yeah, Broadway type hands pretty much. Um, yeah, so in the check check line, so what like when out of position checks and in position checks back, like what is going to be in a bunch of those, like what is going to be in those ranges, like for each player? Yeah, so when it goes check check, um, like the out of position player is going to be doing a lot of equity denial betting, um, because the imposition player is going to be checking back a bunch on the turn as well. Because again, this board is uh, like the ace high and queen king high boards are a bit more static, so um, like there's a big advantage like at the top of the ranges, but yeah, out of position is going to be doing a lot of equity denial betting to sort of get more money in with the middle of its range. Um, you know, because like when it goes check check, like the out of position player still has like a huge advantage. It's just a little bit thinner, and so it's going to go a little bit thinner on the turn. You'll usually see like some smaller sizings. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. I've seen a lot of like 10% betting. on the turn in the check line. So let's do like an offsuit deuce. Okay, so yeah, out of position's betting like pretty much its entire range for like 10%, mixing in some other sizes, but mostly 10%. Yeah, so like again, it's like betting kings for the 10% size and like nines plus. Just like again, it's a bunch of equity denial betting. Because if we see if we check, imposition is just going to check back a bunch. Doesn't have like a ton to protect against. Like if we see like a, let's do like an offsuit 3, and we check, imposition is going to be checking back even a little bit more, because 5-4 doesn't improve. Let's see, what's like a total blank, like an 8? Yeah. Okay, after 2 checks, that's when imposition starts putting money in with most of its ace-x. But again, like just because the flop goes check check doesn't mean that advantage goes away, for the out of position player. Like out of position still has, this huge advantage even at the top. Well, it's probably even more towards the top. So like here's the out of position nutted advantage, and then let's look at the flop. Yeah, like the nuts are a little bit closer on the flop, just because imposition has the ace queen, that they're betting pure if they get checked to. Okay, maybe not quite pure, but close to it. Yeah, so in the check check line, it's just a bunch of equity denial betting. On the flush cards, again, like betting frequency is going to go down a little bit. That's pretty much the case in any line. Let's look at the bet line. So like the bet call line, yeah, we're going to see 10% or quarter pot, or I guess that's 30%. Let's see what it was. Oh, 25. Okay. Yeah. So like 10, wait. Yeah, 10 or 25 are sort of the sizes. Just because, well, I mean, this is the case of pretty much any tree. Like when a flush completes, like you can't overbet on that street, because when you overbet after a flush gets there, the player can just defend with its flushes and pretty much fold everything else. So you don't really gain, like you lose a lot of expectation from like the middling portion, of the other player's range. So and same thing for like straight completing cards. This is a flush and straight completing card. If we do like a 7, yeah, it's gonna go. The sizing is gonna go up a little bit, just because that straight doesn't get there. And imposition is gonna have like the 5-4. So yeah, on these double draw completing cards, we're gonna see the sizing and frequency go down, especially in the bet line. In the check line, I'm kind of curious, because I'm not too sure. So yeah, still a lot of betting. Some bigger betting with like the nutted portion of the range, but mostly just betting small. Yeah, decent amount of raising versus the 10%, with the ace-x. I mean, the 10% is like almost a check. It's just trying to get some really thin value versus the middling ace-x and queen-x and under pairs. So like you can see like some combos of 8-8 are even indifferent versus a 10% pot bet on the turn. So yeah. Well, uh, like maybe a king turn. Nah, still. I mean, it's still like yeah. It's just think of it as like when imposition checks back. Um, like the majority of their hands are hands that don't want to get stacks in. So it's like uh, hands that want to see the next street more or less. Um, so when it goes check check, um, like out of position is just going to be doing a bunch of equity denial betting. Because like we don't like betting 25% against pocket eights or queen nine is um, significantly better than checking because it's just going to go check check a bunch. Um, so yeah. No, maybe on the okay. Yeah, no, I mean maybe the queen. Yeah, there's a little bit of donkey on the queen. But remember, like there's not a huge advantage in ace X for out of position, so we're not gonna see as much donking there. Um and let's see, like a three, yeah. So yep. Um on the let's see, I'm just checking out these Broadway cards. Let's look at yeah, so there's no donking, except for the queen. There's a little bit. Um, so here's the imposition strategy. Um, more betting on the lower cards. Again, small sizes on the flush completing cards. Can you guys see this window? Okay. Um, yeah. So okay, let's see. Let's check out the bet line. Let's see a king. Yeah, we're going to be doing a little bit of jamming with the ace king. Well, with the oh ace jack. That's odd. Okay. I don't know what the fuck that is going on with that. I mean, you have a gut shot. Well, sure. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean he's calling worse. Like it's not so much the issue. It's um, I mean, I guess. Well, ace jack makes sense from the perspective like if you jam ace jack, like when you jam, you're getting called by the nuts a lot, and so when you jam ace jack, like you won't get called by the nuts as often. Um, still sort of odd. Um, what's that? Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean that's just a function of like how much ace X imposition has, um, and like imposition is gonna have a bunch of king queen, so it's just like king jack is just like the blockers are just so fantastic, and you can uh, okay, yeah. So it's just like the king queen and jack 10 is like really what you're concerned about, um, and the ace queen of course, but okay, interesting. Yeah, there's a bunch of jams on the double flush draw boards. Yeah, so like on the diamonds, there's a bunch of jamming, but remember like um, this goes for single raise pots as well. Like on this queen turn, you're going to see the sizing and the frequency go down a little bit because like obviously Imposition is going to have a lot of queen X. So when you bet bigger, you're just isolating Imposition's range to trips or better, which like is not advantageous at all. So yeah, you're going to see like this is a double flush draw queen, so you're going to see like some jams, but like I mean that a little bit, yes. Like right. No, yeah, yeah. No, you're right. Um, you're right on that point for sure. It's just uh, like after it goes bet call, when you jam, it's like you're just getting called by trips. So, um, like that's why you see like sizing down on the turn. Um, okay, so let's look at this board. Low jack versus. So, what do you guys think will be different with this board with a low jack versus small blind than button versus small blind? Yep. 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 That's true. That might affect turn play a good bit. What else? So what does the ace X region of each range look like? Like how does the advantage shift in small blind versus button to low jack versus button? Yeah, yeah. So like, it's not gonna have like any of these middling aces. It's just gonna be like ace 10 plus. And out of position is gonna have like, something similar. Um, and like the nutted region of like ace king and aces. And yeah, well, I mean the offsuit combos will make a bit of a difference. Because like, this is like let's see, like one. Yeah, it's like two and a half combos. So it is going to make a bit of a difference, even if it looks like it's low frequency. Yep. Yeah, there's going to be a little bit more. It's going to be a bit more even towards the top of the range in terms of ace X, right? Um, yeah, because they're both going to have like some ace king and like this ace 10 plus region. So let's see. Let's take a look. You're starting to cut out. No, that's all right. If you have a question, maybe I couldn't understand it. Go ahead and put it in the chat for me. Okay. Yeah. So. Okay. I guess this is kind of what I expected. We see a lot more small betting. So like, here's 10%, a quarter, and then the half pot size. Half pot with centered around like the ace queen and the queens. So yeah, and then like a bunch of 10% betting with like the ace king. Remember, as we said before, like we don't have that huge advantage in ace king. Like remember in this sim, we see like the huge betting with ace king. Like Imposition doesn't have that at all. Button versus small blind, whereas like low jack versus small blind, like Imposition's gonna have like half of it. Yeah, I mean they have like 6-ish combos here, and then like I don't know, like 2/3 of a combo here. So a decent amount. Um, so like we can't just like try to pile money in with ace king. Is more or less the deal. So let's see. Yeah, and Imposition isn't gonna have like the threes, whereas like in this one, Imposition I think had like half of them. Okay, not quite. Still a decent portion. So like we can take a look at the range explorers. So on the right is it's out of position. So on the right is damn it, there. On the right is small blind versus button. On the left is low jack versus small blind. So here are kind of the equities. Let's see. Wait, hold on. Did I pull up the right? Hold on one second. Oh, I was in the wrong node. Okay. Okay, here's small blind versus button on the right. Low jack versus small blind on the left. So again, oh damn it. Pretty big advantage throughout the range. Here, but again, Imposition's gonna have like loads of ace-x. Whereas here, we're gonna have a bigger advantage in ace-x. And then like towards the top of the ranges, it's gonna be much more even, as we can see here. Yeah, I mean, both players are gonna have like the ace-10 plus type hands. Ace-10 suited plus type hands. Okay. Let's look at, okay. So if we look at the Imposition player, small blind versus button, like 18% of, or let's see, 19% of its range is top pair. And then in this one, this is 31%. I mean, that's just a function of, yeah, how much tighter the range is. But like that being said, like, sorry, what's that? Yeah, I mean, like, uh, the top pair density here is much bigger for out of position. Um, So we're gonna see like some bigger bets go in with like the top portion of the ace X, and then like low jack versus small blind. Like we're not gonna, like both players have loads of ace X of like similar strength, right? So it doesn't make as much sense to bet too big, to just isolate. Because like if you're out of position and you have ace jack, if you bet big enough, um, like imposition has so much top pair, like you're just isolating two hands that are better, that are ace jack or better, sort of, in a way. Obviously you're gonna call ace 10, but like that's sort of the idea. Because the ranges are so much tighter. Like you don't want to like bet ace jack for 3/4 pot and then only get called by like ace 10 or better. Like that just doesn't really make a lot of sense. Okay. Does that make sense? Did I like explain that okay? Okay. Like some of these things can be kind of abstract, so I don't want it to sound like like a bunch of gibberish, basically. So here on this board, imposition betting is going down. Yeah, why do y'all think that is? Mm, not so much. I mean, yes, they have more top pair than the other configuration. It's basically that, like I was saying before, it doesn't have, because like if you're in position, like it doesn't make as much sense to bet ace 10 when out of position ace X is like ace 10 or better. Does that make sense? Yeah, so like if you bet small here, like out of position has like some of these wheel aces, but like ace 10 you're just getting called by like all these better aces. Yeah, okay. Again, no check raising, which is interesting. Okay. And yeah, calling all the. What's that? Yeah. Yeah, well, so yeah, that's kind of what I was going to go on to say, which is like these sets are checking for different reasons. Um, like the queens can check to and face a bet much more often because it blocks the imposition checkbacks is more or less the case. Whereas the aces block the calling range, so it doesn't really make much sense to bet that hand. So yeah. Whereas like on this board, like for aforementioned reasons, we're using a small size, so like our sets play better for the small size. Like if we use a small size on this board, the sets would definitely be in there. Like we can see there's a sliver of small betting, but just not much. Check line. Oh, check. Blank, again, a bunch of small betting, 10% size. Um, yeah, so a similar thing going on. You can, pot it to get money in with like ace king plus. Um, but yeah, again, a bunch of small betting. Does that make sense? They don't know what the fuck to do. Um, I see a lot of people argue that your frequency, like your 10% frequency, should go up because people don't raise enough. But in my experience, they really raise too wide, to be honest. Like they just go like check check, you 10%. Like they'll just like raise like all their ace x and like king queen and like all sorts of shit. Um, yeah, yeah. They definitely like, let's see, like right. Um, yeah, yeah, but the main takeaway is like you can't just like raise ace 10 here because you see a 10% pot bet. Um, like it's not even raising ace king all the time, right? Like it's just like imposition is at that much of a disadvantage. We expect like once it goes 10% call, we expect the out of position player to put the money in a lot for us. So yeah, here we see another 10% pot bet, and we can do. That's where we start to do the raising with the rest of our nutted range. Kind of curious about the 10% pot all the way down line. Okay, still no jamming. Still a lot of 10%ing. Um, yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense actually. Uh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the so you're saying like the ace king blank rainbow board, it does a lot of 10% betting, small blind versus button. Yeah, that's interesting. Um, yeah, I mean obviously the rainbow texture is gonna favor the smaller sizes. I mean, well, like I'm not really sure how to rationalize that, to be honest. Um, are you sure it was like small blind versus button? I don't know why I was thinking it was like actually, let's see. Here's Ace King 4 rainbow. Small blind versus button. So this is mostly quarter pot. Some 10%, but like mostly quarter pot. These ranges are a little bit different. I just, these are like 3 better fold ranges, so it's going to be a little bit different. So, for whatever that's worth. Okay. What's that? It's, yeah, you're right. It's not much. Yeah, yeah, that's true. I mean, Imposition is going to be checking back loads, so like if they call, the pot size isn't going to be that much different. Okay, let's look at a couple other boards. Let's see. Let's look at yeah, King 10-4. Flush draw seems good. So this is where it gets you know, a bit nuanced with the range splitting. I'm just gonna, I don't want to fly through this, but let's see, King 10-4, yeah. So on the right we have small blind versus button. On the left we have small blind versus low jack. So yeah, so you know, king high double Broadway boards is going to be like the king high boards are going to be bet at a much higher frequency than the ace high boards. Yeah. So let's see, low jack, quarter pot and half pot, small blind versus button. It's 10%, mostly 10% in quarter pot, some half pot, and then like mixing in some bigger bets with like the nutted region, like the ace king. So yeah. Also, let's see. The imposition player is gonna have like a pretty high density of gut shots on the King 10-4 board. So that's worth noting. No, there's not a check line on the like king high double Broadway boards as out of position 3-better. I just range bet it. The strategic thing is like figuring out the size. I'm usually like using anywhere from like quarter pot to 3/4. I don't do much potting. It looks like this sim on the right does a little bit of potting with ace king, but I just put ace king into the 3/4 size. Yeah. I mean, on this board, I would just do um, like a quarter pot and 3/4 pot size and call it good. You can do some 10% betting if you know, like for some exploitative reasons. Um, if they're gonna like try to put the money in for you, if you try to bet 10%. But yeah, mostly quarter pot and 3/4 is what I utilize on these boards. Um, so I mean, does that make sense? And that, well, okay. So here on the King 10-4 board, low jack versus small blind again, like the ranges are going to be a bit closer because imposition is going to have like the ace king. So we're not going to be doing like, the potting with the ace king, right? Like that just doesn't make sense. Because they have ace king. And you're just going to get called by ace king. As you can see, it's most of them. Oh, no, it's flatting and yeah. So, yeah, like the imposition player's definitely gonna have the advantage in you know, pocket tens. So, it's definitely gonna drive the size down a bit if there's like a huge discrepancy in sets. But I mean, I think the out of position player here is that such an advantage on a king high board. It doesn't matter much. Um, yeah. So basically, yeah. Sort of the nuance here is there's not a like a big size. Um, I don't even use a half pot size in this configuration. I just use a quarter pot size. But it looks like that's like the favored size actually. So I think I might start splitting my range between a quarter and half pot here. And again, notice how it does away with the 10% size, just because the ranges are a bit more equal. Like you don't have like the incentive to try to put money in with like the ace seven, right, type of hands, because like you don't have those. Yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, yeah, the 10% doesn't have quite the utility it does, with the wider ranges. Um, so yeah, I mean, I suppose that makes sense. Yeah, there's definitely some post hoc rationalization going on here, which is fine. I mean, that's kind of how you have to kind of like learn this pattern recognition, because like many times, when I look at a sim for the first time, I'm way off, even on flop strategies. So yeah, it's okay to try to put these pieces together. Let's see, where was I? Okay. Yeah, we can look at. Um, yeah, not much at all. What's that? Does that make sense? Okay. Um, you can do it sort of intuitively. So like one thing to point out is that so this is small blind versus button on the right. Um, so the yeah, I mean the ace king is going to go into the big size. The ace queen, um, yeah, I mean I would just so like how to put this. When you have the flush draw or the backdoor, um, like you don't have as much incentive to get the other player to fold, so you're usually gonna like lean towards a smaller size when you're betting out of position. Um, so yeah, you'll see some of that in there. Like the ace queen of spades is like favoring the small size. I mean, it's just such a strong draw. I mean, you don't mind seeing multiple streets. So whereas like ace queen of hearts, you're not so much a fan of that. I suspect ace jack is the same way. Yeah, it's betting the clubs about the same frequency. So I just say the front door, just put into the smaller size. Um, Probably calling, because like uh, you're calling. Well, I mean, like you shouldn't be facing many raises at all. That doesn't make a lot of sense. But like, um, I mean, I guess it's dependent on whether or not you can call a turn bet. Because if they're jamming turn, then you probably just jam yourself on the flop. Um, let's see. So like quarter, raise, and then yeah, you're just calling. You're calling the ace queen, and then you're jamming the ace jack. I mean, I guess it's just a sort of a function of showdown. Um, but like if we look at the turns like a brick, and they jam. Um, like we fold the ace jack and we call the ace queen. So then, like on the flop, we just jam the ace queen ourselves. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, Sorry, can you repeat that? Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah. We can go back to that. Yeah. So like small blind versus button again, you're gonna have like this nutted advantage because imposition doesn't have ace king, so you're gonna put ace king in that range. The king queen. So like, uh, okay. Basically, you'll see this with like second pair without an overcard, like on these double Broadway boards. Like you'll see like some weird hands go into the big size, like um, but basically it's just that king queen is vulnerable to an ace, so like you're gonna mix that into the big size. It's not because you so much have an advantage in that region. It's just like your hand is vulnerable and it's towards the top of your king x. Um, so yeah, I mean, I've seen that quite a bit actually, where like uh, out of position will favor king queen and the big size over ace king. That's not the case in this sim, but like I've seen that plenty. Um, yeah, pretty much. Imposition has a decent amount of ace or of king queen. I mean. Yeah. Right. Like it doesn't need as much protection as the idea. But yeah, like when you have a spade. It looks like king of clubs, queen of spades is going into the big size. Um, yeah, I mean when you okay, hold on. That's I don't think it's too important. Just when you have a front door or backdoor blocker, like just you don't need as much protection with your hand. Is pretty much the deal. I wouldn't read too much into it. Yeah, and obviously you're going to be betting some queen jack. So why it why do you think queen jack goes into the smaller size as opposed to like ace queen? Anyone have an idea? Sorry, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say? Well, ace queen is going into the bigger size. Like, well, again, I mean, yeah, queen jack doesn't mind seeing another street. It is a strong draw, but also if you bet queen jack for the small size, you get called by a lot of 10x. So if you make a pair on a later street, like you can still be good at showdown. Whereas like if you 3/4 pot, like if you make a pair, it's pretty much shit. So um, yeah, that's sort of the deal. And ace queen, yeah, not like yeah, it's not so happy about seeing the next street, but like it can get called by loads of king x, and so if you hit an ace, like your hand's good a lot. Um, Even if you like put it into the big size. I'm not sure if that's exactly like why, but what's that? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it's let's see. Uh, well, the thing with a hand like Queen Jack is like it's gonna uh, it's gonna stack off. It's gonna be able to stack off on any turn pretty much. So like if you go big and get jammed on, or if you go big, get called, and then um, like bet and get jammed on, or check and get jammed on the turn, like it's calling off regardless. Whereas like if you have like Ace Jack, um, like it's not so much the case. And then like the Ace Queen of Spades, like we're just jamming it ourselves because like we can't call a turn bet or a turn jam. I mean. Um, Go ahead. Well, I think he was talking about the Queen Jack of Spades specifically. Is that right? Well, this is going to get mixed into the big size as opposed to like Ace Jack, because like Queen Jack is like potting a little bit, whereas like Ace Jack is not. Um, for reasons I just stated, which is like Queen Jack is just going to be able to stack off on like any turn regardless, so it doesn't really matter. Whereas Ace Jack, that's not so much the case. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, especially when you have this many sizes. But yeah, does that make sense more or less? And then okay, one more thing to point out is um, okay, I don't want to point it out directly. One second. Sure. So I'll get to your point in a minute. So this is after a 10% pot bet and a call. We're pretty much range betting the turn for like half pot or quarter pot or even 10%. um, so yeah, I mean we're like betting jacks for half pot, um, and then we're probably just shutting down river with a bunch of hands. Okay, we're jamming jacks for value on the river. Yeah, yeah, you'll see this a lot. Yeah, you're jamming queens and jacks. Um, and then, so why do you think we're checking or betting small with tens as opposed to jamming? Well, I can give you a much easier heuristic, which is you just play it like a 10. So like if you have Jack 10 here, like you just bet small. Or if you have Ace 10, like you can check a little bit. Um, but yeah, you just play this like a 10. So um, I think it's probably more emphasized in the other line. So like if it goes bet call, uh, off brick, like here tens are checking or betting small, like you would with a 10. Um, and then so like if you go bet again and get called, break again, like you're just blocking like you would with a 10 with uh, tens full. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, yeah, and then you're just jamming queens and jacks for value. Yeah, again, you're jamming the queens with a spade more because they're more likely to have a worse pair, like a 10. So remember, this is on the runouts where you bet small, like quarter pot or less. I suspect if you bet bigger on the flop, that's not so much the case. Like if you bet 125 call, brick, um, like 250 call, brick. Okay, you're still jamming queens and jacks, which is interesting. I would not have expected that, to be honest. Okay. And you're just jamming. Yeah, and here you see King 10 checking a little bit because you just like you balance your you protect your checking range by playing King 10 like you have a 10, because like you're checking Ace 10, Queen 10, Jack 10, because you're just trying to get called by a 10. And then if you have a 10, like you block their check back, so you're just gonna face a bet more often. Like here, Imposition is jamming Ace 10 for value. Yeah, and then just jamming all its King X. So you can just check your King 10 and get bet into loads. The turn is just betting to get stacks in, pretty much. So it'll be yeah, 1,000 on the, so it'll be like a half pot jam on the river. If you give it a bigger size, it'd go a little bit bigger too, to set up a 1/3 pot jam on the river. Yeah, this is half pot, yeah. Yeah, well, okay, so here we see on the turn, we see some jams with King Queen, and then we see small bets with Ace King. Like kind of what I was talking about earlier, like King Queen is just more vulnerable, so. And Ace King is gonna block the Ace Queen and Ace Jack gut shots. So yeah. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Okay. So are there any more questions about splitting range on the flop here? Like did the rationale sort of make sense? Okay. So let's see. Let's look at one more board. Let's look at Queen Jack 4. That's low jack. Oh, I haven't downloaded it yet, but we can go ahead and look at low jack. Queen Jack 4, half pot size, just exclusively, pretty much. Pretty high frequency, but just, yeah, the half pot size, pretty much. And favoring checks with the Jack X, and then the gut shots, open enders, and all these stronger hands are going to be betting. I'll give you guys a second to look over that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's just checking the aces without a draw, cause showdown value and shit. If we check and face a bet, we're just folding all of the ace X without a gut shot. And then on this board, we're doing check raising. So Not exactly sure what's going on there. At first glance, at least. I'll have to look into that further. That's sort of interesting. I mean, there are a lot more straight draws on this board than the others, and it's a flush draw board. So checking to check raise frequency is going to go up, but that's sort of. Yeah, no, it's a very small check raise. I mean, it's not that small. 62. Oh, the range, yeah. Um, yeah, okay. Yeah, it is. It is quite a small portion. It is quite a small portion. So, um, you can probably get away with range betting this board for half pot. I mean, most queen high and jack high boards out of position, I just range bet for half pot anyhow. But this one's, going to be a bit more nuanced because of like the texture really. Like there are so many gut shots and flush draws, um, and straight draws. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. I'll have to look more into that myself. In the check line, let's see what's going on. Yeah, not like all that 10% betting we saw in the other boards, like the ace high and king high boards. Um, so yeah. Um, yeah, oh, like in the bet line. Oh, okay. The Yeah, it's half pot. It would go a little bit bigger. It would go closer to like 60, like 2/3, I think, if you gave it that size. Um, to set up like a 40% pot jam ish. But what's that? Um, I'm not exactly sure. Um, well, hold on. Let me think. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the main thing is that well, I suppose on this board, it's going to be a bit more important to like get denial on the earlier streets. So it's going to favor like because like on the river you don't like there's no equity to deny, right? So you have a bunch of made hands and air, and so like you basically like once you get to the river, you're just sticking like a small bet in to get the rest of the stacks in against imposition's made hands. So like betting, like setting up a 3/4 pot jam doesn't make as much sense. Yeah, I think it's more of a function of the draws if I recall correctly, because I'm kind of thinking back to some other sims in my mind. Yeah, I think that's more or less the case. If this was like a Queen 9/4 board, I think it wouldn't be as important. Um, it might go a tad smaller, but I can't quite recall. I think I'm gonna run a few sims and kind of play around with that because now I'm curious. But yeah, I mean, I don't have a direct answer. I mean, you go bigger on the turn. It's it's just jam. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm waiting for this to load. Yeah, I mean, there's no other size really on the river. I mean, it's half pot, so. Um, yeah, the main thing is just that you're not betting small on the turn on a brick. So if we look at the strategy comparisons, like you're seeing the small betting, like see on the 10 where ace king 9-8 and a flush gets there, it's not doing any big betting. It's just like a bunch of down betting. Yeah, a bunch of 10%. Whereas like on the other cards, like on the 10, the frequency and the sizing go down to like quarter pot and a half pot. And then like on the double flush draw boards, like we'll see some jams. And then on the king of diamonds, we're just checking our entire range. Like a king is super bad for us. Ace 10, all the straights, and then like the flushes is just like crushing us. Yeah, Imposition has 12% flushes, 10% straights. I mean, that's just like such a huge density. Um, like, like if you bet any sizable, like if you bet any size, like good size at all, you're just getting called by like sets plus, and that's just shit. So, yeah, that's sort of the idea. Um, so basically, like I want the main takeaway to be like um, low jack versus small blind and button versus small blind. Um, like we're not going to be betting as thin with our ace x region on like ace queen 4. Low jack versus small blind, we're just going to be trying to bet bigger with like the top portion of our range. Well, no, I'm sorry, that was button versus small blind. Just because like we don't have the advantage in ace x, and then low jack versus small blind, um, like the ranges are a bit more even, so we're um, like going to be implementing a smaller size, just because the imposition player has like a similar range of ace x on ace queen 4. Um, so like we don't have as much incentive to bet big, just because like our nutted hands aren't so nutted, because both players have ace king on ace queen 4. Um, so yeah, like it doesn't make as much sense to like pot like 3/4 with ace king. Um, and then like on these queen high and jack high boards, like you'll just be doing a lot of range betting for half pot as the out of position player. So yeah, are there any questions for me? I'm sure you have a million questions, but like that we can get through here. uh, yeah, I mean, you, you just do more small betting and try to like read their soul, I guess. Yeah, that's just live poker. Easy game. Really though, like if you know, because like if you know the imposition player doesn't fold ace-x suited to a 3-bet, now you can like do a bunch of checking as the out of position player with like your middling ace-x and just like implement a big size with the top of your range. Um, that's sort of the takeaway. That's so yeah. If you know, yeah, well, yeah, especially in live poker, you want to be doing a lot of checking with your ace-x portion. Um, um, general trends in what exactly? Like in practice, are you saying? Oh, you said deeper. Yeah, you play much more passive when deep, and that goes for like most positions because like um basically uh when you're deep, let's say you're like infinitely blinds deep, right? And you get to the river and you have infinity pot size bets left behind. If you bet your entire stack, you literally only get called by the nuts. So that's sort of the abstract idea you can apply to that. Like when you're so many blinds deep, when you get stacks in, you're just like getting in nuts versus nuts more. So like like you're going to be taking passive actions more on earlier streets, just because like if you're 100 blinds deep, you can just like put in 100 big blinds with ace king on ace queen 4 on most runouts and just like not even think about it. Especially like small blind versus button, right? Whereas like if you're 300 blinds deep, um, one pair hands are not so great when all the money goes in, especially. Um, even two pair hands aren't going to be great. Like if you have ace king on ace king queen x, um, and 300 blinds go in, like it's not great. That's sort of the idea. What's that? Yeah, yeah. That I mean that's sort of why um, live is so good because like people put in 300 blinds like it's 100 blinds or 50. Yeah. So yeah, this was a sort of off the cuff sort of tutorial, more or less. But yeah, I learned a lot. Thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Josh, for running the Sims. Yeah, yeah. This was a good exercise. Um, nice, nice. It's more like it. It's the iterations through the tree that takes up RAM. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a bit abstract, but basically, like uh, as you add flop sizes, the tree gets exponentially bigger. So then, like each node on the later streets is going to take up more RAM. Um, yeah, yeah, it's going to increase exponentially. Yeah. No, it's cool. Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna judge you, obviously. So yeah, yeah, like hell yeah. All right, I gotta get off of here. But thanks guys for coming. Um, yeah, for sure. I'll probably put this recording up on my YouTube page, so you guys can rewatch it there if you'd like. Um, that's a great question. I have zero videos on it, so this will actually be my first video. Um, I have several videos planned on like some theory stuff. It's more lecture type stuff, and I'll be releasing that there as well. So yeah, congrats guys. You get to be the first video on my channel. But yeah, I'll link you guys. What's that? No, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, like when I have a billion videos on there, no one's gonna see this. So it's cool. That's sort of the idea, but especially so. Yeah, I mean you're splitting more. You're splitting more on the king high boards. Small blind versus button on the double Broadway king high boards is really where it gets tricky. Small blind versus button, and then low jack uh, versus small blind. Um, yeah, we're just like the ranges are much tighter, so you can just use like a half pot size basically, or like a I think it was like quarter and half pot actually. Yeah, it was quarter and half pot. Um, Low jack versus small blind, if I'm remembering correctly. Hell yeah. I do that shit all the time live. It's awesome. Oh my god. Three bet pots. They think I misclicked and yeah, it's pretty great. I have a funny story about the 10% pop bet. It was basically like it was the first time. It was the day after I learned about it. This was like a year ago, and there was this like massive whale at my live table, and like I three bet him with ace king, and he calls with like the ace four off or whatever the fuck he had. Um, and yeah, I don't know what he had, but I remember the flop was like yeah, yeah. I mean I mean I three bet him to like 30 blinds, and he just like he called. Yeah, I mean it was an insane game, but yeah, it was like king 10 4, and I like 10%, and he just like jams like 300 blinds, and I snap it off, of course, and he just like insta mucks. No, no, well, like after like they ran it out, but he didn't even show, so it was just funny. Um, all of it. You're playing all of it. The whole thing. Okay. Yeah. I gotta hop off, but yeah. Again, thanks, guys.